The spontaneity of live television, right? Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here at All Access Pass. My name is Jason. I'm your cruise host, and today I'm excited to have another absolute legend on this stage. Make a little noise, as much as you think he might deserve, for Mr. Gary Puckett.
Thank you very much.
The sheer number of people we have in this room, and those of you on TV can't see it, but we have a packed house standing in the back, people standing on chairs screaming. I saw a child get thrown. We don't even have kids on board. There's not even kids on board, and I saw someone throw a child. That's how impressive this is. Huge fans. What's it like to come to a room knowing you have an interview and see this many people clamoring to get into this room just to be in your presence, just to hear you, just to be with you?
What's it like?
Yeah, what's it like? What's it feel like?
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, I stood backstage and kind of prayed that I wouldn't be too nervous to be out here. But it's a wonderful thing that the people have loved the music all these years, and they continue to do so. And I thank you from the bottom of my very heart.
When you were first starting off in the game, when you were first starting to make music, you were first starting to do this, did you envision this? Was it major stardom that was in your head, or were you just one foot in front of the next trying to make it happen?
Well, I know that I wanted to have success. I wanted to go out on the concert trail. I didn't want to be in the nightclub scene all of my life. I thought that it would be debilitating and not healthy and all that. Yes, I wanted to go out there and work with the Beach Boys, and eventually I did, but it was just something that was there. I wanted to succeed. I grew up in a musical family.
Explain that for people that don't know.
Well, when I was 6 years old, my mother and father sat me at a piano, and they said, "You will take piano lessons."
You will take, yes.
That's what they said. And I studied diligently for about 4 years, but I was a typical kid. I wanted to go out and chase garter snakes, I wanted to do what boys did, jump off the cliff into the mud hole and things like that, And
no wonder your parents wanted to put you behind a piano. He's on the cliff again. Put him behind the piano. Twinkle, twinkle. Do it.
But, that worked itself out into the fact that I happened to grow up in the transition of an era. We were going from big band to rock and roll. And I was sort of in the middle of it in a way. My brain was, at least. I was just a kid, but growing up and hearing the transitional music to me was something like, Peggy Lee. How much is that doggy in the window? That kind of stuff, and it had that original sort of kind of feel, but there was something within it that was drawing us closer and closer to rock and roll, and I was always listening to it, always intrigued by it. And of course, along came the greats, from Elvis to Little Richard to Fats Domino to, so many. But when I was 15, I found a guitar in my grandparents' attic. And that sort of spurred me on to think, this could be really fun, I found myself in a talent contest one time where this is how music can be fulfilling or it can be heartbreaking. So I got in this talent contest. It was on local TV. And there was some girl who was a violinist, and she was quite good. And so I did a Jerry Lee Lewis thing, Lucille, whatever it was. And
did you win?
Well, here's the deal. When it got to the next week or whatever, and they said, and the winner is Gary Puckett. Well, not really. He said, oh, I'm sorry, I read the wrong script.
Oh, you got Steve Harvey'd. Yeah. Oh, look how current you guys are. That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
It's true. And I was just heartbroken, you know. I mean, I went, well, she was really good, you know, and I was trying to rationalize myself into losing.
Sure, yeah.
But it was an experience.
It's the excitement and the heartbreak all in a matter of...
Yeah, all at the same time. But it taught me something early on, you know, that you're not always going to, you know, get those accolades, and you're not always going to succeed and all that. So anyway, little story.
You can tell us all stories. Yeah, I think you could read the phone book, and these people would be happy with you. I would be too. So take us forward a little bit. If I'm not mistaken, there's the Outcasts, and then
let's see. Yeah,
Gary and the Remarkables, right? It's kind of all.
Well, yeah. It's taking me back in my thoughts to high school days when my first little group was called the Redcoats. And we played at sock hops and things. I heard Jim Peterick say that today on stage. You know, he played in the sock hops. They were a garage band. We were a garage band, all that. But it was high school, you know, and it was exciting to do that kind of thing. So that happened. My family was pushing me into higher education. And I kept wanting to please my family, you know. So I'm thinking, well, what do I want to do with higher education? They'd always say, well, you've always got 2 years, you know, to decide what you want to do. You just got to do all your, you know, required studies and all that stuff. So I went in and I thought, well, maybe I'll be a psychologist, a psychiatrist. I like that child psychology thing. Criminal psych. In fact, my wife is an extreme forensic person. She could have been great, you know, at autopsies. She could have been great.
You better keep your business very straight, sir.
Well,
we could lose you and never find you at this rate, I have a feeling.
That's the truth. Yeah. That's the truth. She says, I know how to kill somebody and never be found out.
Somebody, there were parentheses around that. Last time you were going on tour, you know.
At any rate, yeah, the Redcoats were fun. We played at the sock hops. I went into the higher education. I did that for 2 years. Then I quit school one day. I was living in San Diego, and I was walking across a bridge in the park, actually, there in San Diego, and I just took the books and went, oops, you know. And they went over the side, and
Nowadays, that's about a $5,000 mistake.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. We learned that with our 2 daughters. $700 for what book? You know? Yeah. Anyway, then I went into the local groups. You know, I was in a group called the Outcasts. Great group. Was in a group before that. What did we call ourselves? I guess it was the Outcasts as well. But it was a big band. It was 12 pieces. How do you make any money with 12 pieces? You know, besides that, you can't all fit on the stage. So eventually some people get fired, you know. Outcasts were good. We were a trio, kind of a power trio. I think I said something about this on stage last night.
Yep.
Bass, guitar, drums. We played Stones, Beatles, all the music of the era, the stuff we were listening to together, you know. And it was great, except when you have 2 people in the group that really are at odds all the time, it's bound to disintegrate, you know. And at some point, Tommy, the drummer, and Bobby, the bass player, finally I said, guys, I'm on my way. So it took me 4 months, and it was right around the time that Kennedy was assassinated. And so anyway, it was a very difficult time, you know, for me. 4 months there, they closed down all the military installations and all that kind of stuff, you know. But I thought, well, I'm going to find the right people, and I'm going to make that band, and I don't know how to be a boss or a leader, but I'm going to do it somehow. I'm going to get there. I'm going to create something that's going to be good. And beyond that, I was kind of befuddled, you know, not knowing what to do. So I found these guys, and I said, here's my idea. We're going to get together. We're going to be a band. And we're going to make some records, and we're going to go out on the concert trail and work with the acts and the artists of the day. And they said, great, let's do that. They all wanted to do that. So we rehearsed in the garage for 30 days. We had been working at a club in San Diego. And I went back to the club owner, and I said, listen, I've got a good band. I want to come back to work for you. So he said, okay, come on in. Let's go to work. we played the music of the day, and I went to Los Angeles and found a little agent. And I said, would you come and hear this band, please? Because I think we've got potential. And he says, sure. He was a trombone player from the big band era, and he created his little office. And I said, you can book us, and we'd go out on the road. Came down to hear us. He said, well, you guys aren't that good, but I'll see if I can get you a job, So he had his little network, and he put us to work up in Van Nuys, and then we went to Seattle. And that's where I got the idea. I kept thinking to myself, what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it? It's not an easy thing because this business is incredibly competitive. Everybody wants to be king of the hill. Well, we did too, We didn't know how to get there. So I thought, well, what are we going to do? And I'm thinking. And I remember now talking about it last night. Do you remember what we were wearing? A lot of the stuff we're wearing here for fun, the tie-dyes and stuff. You're not wearing the platform shoes, though. No.
That's tonight. That's tonight for most of them.
Platform shoes are tonight?
Yeah,
cool.
It's a costume night. So
yeah, bell bottoms, hip huggers. You remember all that stuff? Leathers, velvets, paisleys, And that's when holy jeans became, and I don't mean in the religious sense either. You
don't mean Jesus' jeans. Yeah.
So I thought we got to be different. Plus I had found out, like I told the audience last night, that there were like 400 records coming out every month to the radio stations. And having a top 40, how do you get past those little brown labels? The program director probably sat like this, going through them, looking for a name he would recognize, And I thought, maybe if we've got a picture on that very first record that we make, that would be helpful. So once I got that going, there was a disc jockey in Columbus, Ohio, that was a Civil War historian. And if any of you remember the picture, it was very authentic, a sepia tone, and we were dressed in the garb of the Civil War outfits. And this guy said, this is really an authentic picture, except for a couple of inside jokes that he didn't catch. And he said, I wonder what the record sounds like. So he auditioned it, loved it. It went to #1 in Columbus. And that's when Columbia Records said, we have a way now. We have a path to make you a hit record around the world. So, there's a lot more to the story if you want to know, but ask me the questions.
Of course we do. Now you're starting to get radio play. You have a record go to #1 in Columbia. And this is a generic question, but at what point did you know, or did you have a strong feeling that you were either making it or you were going to make it? That this is going to work. We're not just going to be another one and done, or we're not just going to be a fad.
I don't know that was really a moment that I knew that. There was always a question, is it going to continue? But when I heard Woman, Woman for the first time on the radio, that was kind of cool. And maybe that was one of those moments where I sort of went, maybe there really is something to all of this, because I'm driving around with a guy by the name of Steve Popovich. And Steve is the local Cleveland rep for Columbia Records. And he said, come on, because what they did was they called me in San Diego and said, listen, you've got a hit record in Columbus, Ohio. And I said, really? And they said, we're going to bring you to Cleveland and promote that record. So they brought us there to go to work in a little club called Otto's Grotto. Imagine that. It was in the basement of the Sheraton Hotel. And it was a 6-night gig. And it was, I think it was just after Christmas, February. It was colder than you know what, and it was miserable in a lot of ways. But we were having fun working in that club, and there was a guy there by the name of Wild Child. Dick Kemp, I think was his name. And he would come to the venue of the club, and he would set up his radio gear, and WIXY, if I'm right, at any rate, and he would sit there and do his radio show from the stage right there. So we saw the record jump onto the charts, but at any rate, They would take me out in the daytime with Steve, And we would go around to radio stations and say, here we are, we'd like to show you our wares, so to speak. So here we are. And when I heard that, I just kind of went, that's pretty cool.
That would be pretty fast. That'd be a fun moment, especially after you've been trying and you've been attempting. And if you have the vision of wanting to be great, and you have the vision of wanting to, as you said, be the king of the hill, to hear it start to be played on the radio, that's got to be that first moment of here it goes, here it goes.
It was pretty terrific not to have a tape in the dashboard or wherever it was. Yeah.